Okay, so my name is Mike Lemon. I am a lecturer in the Interdisciplinary Studies program at Texas Tech University. And my contribution was for They Were There, Dell Comics Lobo, and the Black Cowboy in American comic books. And so coming into this, I really wanted to focus on two questions. The first is how comics as a textual visual medium can help readers better understand lived or imagined experiences of people and communities of color, focusing primarily on the American West. And as I was doing that, it led to the second question, which is collaborative teams. So comics are made by multiple people. So how do they work together and sometimes at odds to explore, expand, or complicate conventions of the mythic American West, which are typically whitewashed for Anglo protagonists.
Right. For
Right.
readers who, again, are new to this history or don't know about Lobo, can you share a couple of things that they will find in your chapter?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, from these two images that we have on the screen, we're already getting some challenges to how we think about the Western.
Mhm.
So Dell Comics by the 1960s had, in the 40s and 50s, they had a pretty sizable share of the market. But by the 1960s, they were losing sort of their marketability as superhero genres in particular exploded. And so Dell Comics still had some franchises, but they were experimenting a lot with conventions.
Mm.
And so in 1965, we get two issues of Lobo, and here um, we have the cover, and then we have the title for the first issue here. Now, just like any Silver Age collaborative team, we have some complications or we have different origination stories for how this character started.
Yeah.
The artist said he came up with the idea. The author said, no, I read this book about black cowboys, and I wanted to say this is part of, something this story that we need to tell.
Mhm.
Whatever the case may be, DJ Arneson and Tony Tallarico come together to create this incredible black cowboy that unfortunately only is published for two issues, and that's something that I talk a little bit about in the chapter, because in the first issue we have this expansion of the American Western myth to include cowboys of color,
Mhm.
particularly Lobo, who is an unnamed um, veteran of the American Civil War. He goes out west. And as we can see in this panel sequence, like many cowboys in the Western myth, he takes to the work.
Mhm.
Moreover, he's never given a proper name. He's always referred to by the work that he can do, which is another convention of the West.
Oh.
You can think about Kid Colt here, the idea of you are known by the work that you can do.
Mm.
What Tallarico is doing here is really interesting because we do again have this expansion of the West. We have an integrated um, uh, cattle drive.
Mm.
And then we have this cook who seems to be of another ethnicity, maybe Chinese.
Mm.
And so we have this idea of Lobo entering into the Western myth. And I think there's two good quotes here
Mhm.
for how Arneson and Tallarico are challenging the Western myth. According to Jane Tompkins, when we think about the West, it is thought about as a regenerative space, particularly for men, in which they can receive purpose. Amy Kaplan talks about it in more racialized terms, saying that the Western myth, the American West, becomes the ideology of white American nationalism.
Mm.
So here we have a black cowboy who's coming in and becoming he's becoming the cowboy, the quintessential sort of convention that we have. Now, Qiana, you showed these to me right before we started recording. I've never seen these before, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate them because we can see almost as if Tallarico was going into film and saying, who are some
Yeah.
um, uh, popular uh, actors at this time? It's almost as if we have Sidney Poitier
Yeah, I was
here.
thinking about that too.
Um, but we also have the standard sort of convention. So I'm thinking about Will Eisner talking about how caricature can be used to present not only racialization, but also it is something that can be used for sort of national myth. And we look at Lobo here and just his posturing, the activities that he's doing on these right images, they immediately tell us a lot about who he is, and we can enter into the conventions of the Western as a genre.
Mhm, mhm.
Now, with that said, there's also the question of race. And even though the authors do not explicitly talk about race, it's something that they can avoid. So
Mhm.
there's a panel sequence, oh, it's right there, um,
Yeah.
that is really telling in the first issue of Lobo. So if we look at this, we have Lobo talking about just the position as he's entering into the American West as a physical and mythic space.
Mhm.
He's an ex-private riding a Reb's general horse. The next panel, it is the ideal Western, right?
Yeah.
Backlit, the posture on the horse. But then this is juxtaposed with this white ferryman. And he says, 4 bits for you, 4 bits for the horse, ellipses in
In
advance.
advance. Yes.
Now, the ellipsis is part of Arneson's storytelling. It's something that he uses to try to drive home dramatic iron or, you know, sort of dramatic pause. But
Mhm.
here it becomes telling. We have a black ex-soldier seeking to enter into a new space, to become renewed. That in advance, though, suggests the systematic racism that historically Black cowboys faced. According to Quintard Taylor, probably about 25% of the cowboys on those traditional cattle drives were of African descent.
Mhm.
Uh, but they were almost universally never the cattle drive lead. They were often had a longer apprenticeship. They were still for as egalitarian as we think about the West.
Mhm.
That you know you can be judged by what you can do, which we see in that last panel in the sequence. Lobo becomes branded.
Mhm.